Now, if you had cosmetic surgery and weren't happy with the results, you might go on to a support group and ask for advice about what to do. Well, that's what Tracy Holland did, and it landed her in court. She was accused of harassment and threatened with an injunction by the clinic involved, Signature. As we've reported before, she's amongst 5 women and 1 man faced with legal action after posting unfavourable comments about Signature on support groups and review sites. But a judge has thrown out the application to gag Tracy, describing it as totally without merit. Well, Melanie Abbott has been following all of this and can tell us more about it. Morning, Melanie.
Morning.
So remind us, tell us about this case.
This case is quite a success story, really. It's the story of one woman taking on really quite a big corporation. Signature Clinic has got 8 centres in cities all around the UK. Tracy had her eye surgery last February in the Birmingham Centre. She wasn't happy with the results, so she posted on a support group on Facebook. She was looking for advice. She wanted to know what she could do. Now, earlier she told me all about the operation, and then she told me what happened next.
I found the Facebook group after I'd had the surgery. I was originally posting on that group to say I was happy with my surgery. After a few weeks, I posted that I wasn't so happy with the surgery, pointed out the things, my concerns that I could see.
When you posted these comments then, did the clinic contact you immediately?
I think it was June time that it was the first interaction I had with the clinic when I had a letter from their solicitor. I didn't really take much notice of it. I just carried on asking for advice.
So then eventually you got a letter saying they were taking you to court?
Yes, I was away with my friends and I woke up one morning and I had an email to say he was taking me to court. I felt sick. It scared me. So I replied and I told him I would stop posting. I couldn't afford to get solicitors to help me. He said that he would reject my offer and the fear of imprisonment for breach of an injunction was the only way to stop my itchy fingers and to stop reputational and financial harm to his client. He threatened me with imprisonment. He threatened me with bankruptcy as well. He threatened me that I may have to sell my house.
Now the case has been heard, found in your favour, but what was it like having to go to court?
Horrible. It's constantly been in my mind no matter what, even, through my birthday, through Christmas, through just them whole 3 months. I've just felt sick with worry, to be honest.
How confident were you that you would get this outcome?
I wasn't confident at all. I was really worried, even though I was told by others I hadn't really done anything wrong. He was like a dog with a bone. He just wasn't letting go. And so it made me think that he was really confident that he was going to win his case because of the way he kept on and he wasn't backtracking at all. It did make me feel nervous that maybe they knew something I didn't. They did terminate my aftercare. I did have a letter in September from their chief medical officer. He mentioned that I possibly had psychological problems because the amount of times I was asking for advice on that Facebook group. I didn't have any aftercare at all that I could go to then, so I really needed the group more than ever to ask for advice. The judge said that it quite unprofessional for their chief medical officer to actually say that I've got psychological problems.
So, it's quite a story though, isn't it, Tracy? How do you feel now having kind of taken on this large company and having been successful?
Massive, massive relief. Honestly, can't tell you. I just felt really tearful because finally it was over and I knew that I could just carry on with my life again as normal without having that massive worry. You are okay there if you're happy with your surgery. And if you're not happy or something's not quite right and you need to ask for advice, you need to be careful because that's all I did. And then they came after me.
And Tracy did tell me that she wouldn't have been able to do this, to take the legal action, without the support of the Free Speech Union, which has helped her and which put her in touch with a solicitor.
And well, Tracy's solicitor, Megan Grew from Reynolds, Porter and Chamberlain is here. Morning, welcome to Woman's Hour, Tracy. Megan, sorry. On what grounds did the judge throw out the case? Let's get into this a little bit.
So the judge actually decided to throw the case out on 2 grounds. The first was that there were no reasonable grounds to bring this claim. So the judge was taken to a number of posts which Tracy had made in this Facebook support group for the particular type of procedure that she'd had. And from looking at the posts that he was shown in the hearing, he found that there was no way that this was harassment. It fell so far below the standard that's required to make out a claim in harassment, which, for some context, that's causing fear, alarm, distress. It's oppressive conduct. It's essentially a criminal standard, and the judge just wasn't convinced that Tracy's comments seeking support and documenting her concerns about her recovery were anywhere near that standard. The second ground, and I think perhaps the more notable one, was that this was an abusive process. So that means using effectively the court's procedures and the law in a way that it wasn't originally designed for. The judge referred to a number of communications that were sent by the claimant's signature solicitor, in which he, as Tracy's mentioned, threatened potential imprisonment, and that the fear of imprisonment would stop those itchy fingers and prevent her from posting further.
And this is what they said. They described her as having itchy fingers.
Yes, yeah, that was in a letter, or an email rather, that was sent to her before we were instructed. So this was while she was self-represented, that these kind of communications were being sent to her. But it went further, actually. So the judge saw an email which was, again, sent to Tracy directly, in which the chief medical officer for Signature made suggestions that she had an obsession, that she had psychological issues, and saying that she may be ordered to pay 5 to 6 figures in legal costs if Signature were to succeed. And the judge actually found that the fact it came from the chief medical officer to be an aggravating factor in the abusive process ground.
It's what you talked to her about, Melanie, didn't you? The psychological problems that they suggested she had, and not actually what the impact that has on somebody when it's a letter from a big corporation.
Absolutely, yeah. She was terrified by that.
Why do you think, Megan, the judge took such a dim view of things?
I think, for the reasons mentioned, this was clearly conducted in a way that potentially was intimidating to Tracy. The judge noted that it was very likely to cause her significant distress and upset. And the judge also went further and found that this claim was totally without merit. That's essentially the judge going on record to say that this was bound to fail. He also commented on the way that the case had been conducted. In particular, he noted that it wasn't actually until 6 o'clock in the morning on the day of the hearing that we found out in any detail specifically which posts Tracy had been accused of harassing Mr. Gotti and Signature through.
How important do you think this case is when it comes to free speech?
I think it's incredibly important, and the judge noted in the case that Tracy's right to freedom of expression under Article 10 was engaged by this, and that actually there'd been a wholesale failure of the other side to acknowledge that. This is someone posting on a Facebook support group.
Yeah, which people do all the time.
Exactly, and trying to seek support and document her recovery journey, raise concerns she had with the treatment for a major medical procedure that she'd had. And I think if we lived in a world where companies could shut down any and all criticism, and even people seeking support, I think that would be incredibly concerning.
Well, support is one thing, but also we live in review culture, and often you rely on those reviews, don't you, whether it's a holiday or plastic surgery or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
There are 5 other people tied up in this, awaiting for their cases to be heard. What can we look into? What can we think? What's your thoughts on that?
So my firm, RPC, are instructed on those other 5 claims, right, and that litigation is ongoing, so I can't speak too much to the detail of that. But what I can say is I think it's really encouraging that we've had this result in Tracy's case, and it shows that the courts are willing to, strike out claims that are made without merit and claims which potentially have the effect of silencing people's freedom of expression.
And even a traumatic experience for Tracy, but what a relief.
Yes, absolutely.